laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous.
I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that?
I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
Welcome, everybody, to a special Tuesday night edition of Ask Dr. Drew. We are going to let everybody pile into the stream here. I'm watching you guys on the post, and I see what you're commenting on here, and we will be able to take your calls, of course. The number, somebody help me, 9842 Dr. Drew. There we go. Yeah. So please do call in. We'll try to take calls as well. But we're doing a little bit of a different kind of show tonight. Remember to support the people that support the program, of course. We got our friends at Social at CBD. And don't forget the needle destruction device, folks. That is beginning to catch on. It is an advanced, it's a technology. It reminds me of electricity, the way it's spreading, that it's such a significant advance. And, oh, my God, it's going to make the problem of needle sticks go away, in my humble opinion, at least markedly reduced. And it's spreading the way the light bulb spread. That's the way I feel about it.
You're changing the world.
Ami Horowitz in here. Speaking of changing the world, people are saying on the thread, I like Ami's videos. So what's going on AmiHorowitz.com?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's my time.
What's going on on your website?
It's amazing. It's look, unfortunately, the world, as things get worse for the world, things get better for me.
It's like comedians. That's like comedians. The worse, the more pernicious the politicians are, the better it is for comedians.
Unfortunately, that's true, and there's just so much craziness going on in the world. You know, just recently, I went to Brooklyn to talk with, because as I think a lot of people know, I don't know if you guys in the audience know, but there has been a spate of anti-Semitic attacks going on all across the tri-state area in New York.
Yes,
and
they've been wild too, really bad ones.
Really bad ones. And so I went to Brooklyn to talk. Unfortunately, it's been coming primarily from the African American community. And I went there to find out, if they knew what was going on, and it was really one of those depressing videos, unfortunately.
Oh, so there were some ideas that were sort of unfortunate.
There was a lot of anti-Semitism coming out. A lot of anti-Semitism.
I wonder where that's coming from. It's so. I know there's weird.
I'll tell you where it's coming from.
Yeah.
This idea that we're pushing on people, saying that intersectionality and the wage gap and the earnings gap, that they're pushing that so hard that people are saying, well, by the way, incorrectly, well, the Jews are all rich.
I see.
Therefore,
so they're taking away
from us.
I understand.
And since it's a limited pie, according to the Bernie Sanders of the world,
right.
If you take a piece, you're taking a piece away from me.
Got it.
A lot of it's coming from that. It's class warfare thing that's being sold to people, unfortunately.
Oh, it's a shame. Well, we got to, again, I keep, these are actually dangerous ideas, and I just keep hoping for a middle ground that we find a way to unite around. You got any interesting videos coming up other than that? I mean, are you planning anything? You always have some crazy ideas.
I do. The one that I'm working on now, it's going to be, it's crazy, is unfortunately, if you're gay, and if you live LGBTQ and you live anywhere in the Palestinian territories.
In the where?
The Palestinian territories. You are subject to execution, to torture, honor killings. I mean, it's rampant. So I went there to kind of uncover what's happening to the LGBT community.
Tell them a little bit about what you did in Sweden. That's another interesting story. And is it still that bad there?
So, okay, so the video was I went to Sweden because there was a massive increase in rape and murder that kind of went alongside a massive increase that Sweden was taking in Islamic refugees. The country has gone from essentially zero Islamic population societal dislocations that came from it, that the rape and murder rates skyrocket alongside.
Was there
those numbers.
severe poverty and things in these
not at all. In fact, It wasn't poverty with it at all. In fact, the social services were so helpful to these people. It didn't matter if they had a job or didn't have a job. They were given cash, education, housing, food. They didn't have a want in the world, but they were put in these kind of like, they have these areas called no-go zones, where if you're a white person, you can't enter. And of course, we entered, and I got my ass kicked by 5 people and put in the hospital.
Our sound was flipping on and off, though. So what Ami
It's
was
fixed.
Okay, thank you. What Ami was saying was that he went into these no-go zones, and you almost got killed.
Yeah, unfortunately. So
And why were they so violent? Why did they become such enclaves? I mean, if people were getting social services, and was it the trauma of the war being sort of transmitted?
that's your job to find out what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that FedEx won't deliver there. Emergency services won't go there. It's too dangerous for them.
And
Police stations have left those areas because they were being attacked, firebombed.
Well, one of the reasons I brought this up, I heard the audio, and let me tell you, I'm watching the restream, guys, and I see you saying constantly, does Drew read the stream? Yes, I read the stream. I don't see your original questions, though. So go ahead and ask them a couple times because things zoom past me, but I am trying to read the stream. And we appreciate it, by the way, when you tell us when the sound is off. It's actually not on our end. It's something downstream that happens, and we have no control over it, unfortunately. But when I heard the audio of you getting your ass kicked, it was on, what's that?
Who's very handsome?
It means you.
I think they're talking about you.
No. They don't. No. Because that never comes up on the stream. So why?
So Drew, let's work with the restream tonight as questions come up, because I'm not able to launch the call-in studio very well right now. For some reason, it just won't work. And you do that on A Dose of Drew. So if any questions come up, keep an eye on it. And then if you can screen the calls yourself that you see on here,
Sure.
I'm going to keep trying.
Okay.
But something else is going on. I don't know.
All right. So we're having some technical stuff. So again, we're here in the vanguard of streaming media. We appreciate you guys jumping on board with it, but all the technical. I used to do a streaming, not even a streaming. It was a weekly web TV show, and I always felt that this kind of thing was the future for the internet, and we could not get many users. We did a really professional talk show for about a half an hour once a week. Everybody in the world was on it back. This was now in the late 90s. And the reason we couldn't get enough viewers or any viewers was nobody had broadband. Nobody could watch it.
You were ahead of your time.
Nobody could watch
Dr.
it.
Drew, ahead of his time.
And so some of these technical things that we're encountering here are the function of the technology catching up with us. So,
for example, me not hearing in my headphones.
Well, they can fix that
as
probably.
a for instance.
That's a for instance. Maybe there's a volume button over here on the side that Kaleb.
There we go.
Is that better?
There
Good.
we go.
All right, so I see you guys that did call in and got ahead of the pack at Dr.Drew.tv. They are essentially. You're asking if I'm going to take calls tomorrow. Probably not. I'm taking calls now. And the other caller is a very complex pain question that we are not doing pain calls tonight. We are doing something completely different. Tonight is not a medical show, though. If significant medical things come up on the stream, I'll try to answer them as they go by. I'm sure you got something that you want me to deal with, but I want to make this point and transition to what we're getting into tonight. So Ami and I have known each other for a long time, and I heard Ami's audio of him getting his ass kicked in Sweden on the Howard Stern show, and I think it was a result of that we realized we have a mutual interest in that show. Because I called you, are you okay? Is everything all right?
Interest is downplaying it. Really, obsession.
Our obsession
really
with the show.
probably
So we then did
word.
a podcast called The Howard Vortex. I believe you can still find that at drdrew.com, where we interviewed a number of the Whack Packers. We never got to Bigfoot, did we? We never could track him down. That's my favorite. But in the course of all of our conversations about the show, we always wanted to talk to Jackie the Joker, the Joke Man, and Jackie Martling. Jackie the Joke Man Martling. Okay, I will turn it over to you, Ami, because you made contact with Jackie, and now we are going to be speaking with him. So give us a little intro here.
So Jackie the Joke Man Martling was a long time Stern studio person. In fact, he kind of started with, and I'm sure Jackie will tell us kind of the background, but briefly, he started with him just after Washington, D.C., which was really a long time ago when they first moved to New York, and he was a mainstay with that show until, and we'll talk about this, Jackie, until he famously left the show to punch up scripts. And Artie then took over his spot, and Jackie has been living, I think, a very full life since then. We'll get into kind of what he's doing, who he's talking to, how the comedy circuit is going for him. But he was one of the, if not the most important figure on that show outside of Howard Stern for many
years, and certainly somebody who's still discussed to this day. Now, I promised I would talk about medical things as they come by. Jackie, you probably even love this little comment. HPV vaccine until you're 45. You can take it at 50. The only reason it's still 45 is a function of how the FDA approves it. If you are worried and sexually active at 50 with new partners, you can still get the HPV vaccine, usually by an enlightened infectious disease doctor.
Sweet.
So let's go ahead and bring in Jackie in. Jackie, there you are. You look great, man.
Well, I'm at the age where if you say you look great, that means, wow, you're not dead yet. I want to know what this vaccine is so I can have sex after 45. What is that vaccine?
It depends how much you're getting into, but yeah, there's a way to prevent cervical cancer, anal cancer, head and neck cancer, and it's a vaccine. It's the HPV vaccine.
Got him, need him, got him. Hey, listen to me. You got to move quicker, Drew. I'm no kidding. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden the sound's not working. I turned every goddamn knob in my apartment here trying to get the sound back on. And meanwhile, it was your fault.
It was not our fault, Jackie.
I talked to Ami for 3 days. I flirted with him, thinking I was talking to Amy. And then I found out I was a guy with a penis. So that all went to hell. And all of a sudden the sound goes off. And I go, maybe they're after him, and that's why the sound's going off. I've been sitting there watching you for 10 minutes. You haven't cured one of my addictions yet. This is a total waste of time.
We can get into that. There's still plenty of time for us to go downstream on drug addiction or whatever else might be ailing you.
I just wanted to say a few things because I've been sitting here forever. This is very interesting, and thank you for having me. And I'm very honored that you went through the whole freaking whack pack and then chose to have me on your show.
Hey, Jackie. Jackie, do you know why? I know why we didn't have Jackie sooner. We literally didn't think you'd do it.
Actually, that's not true.
That's what I thought.
No, I had reached out to Jackie, and if he goes back a couple years in the emails, he'll see it. And he said he was going to pass.
Go back
years
and emails.
We didn't do it.
I can't go back 5 minutes in my memory.
Yeah, we're happy to have you now, Jackie.
No. I'm curious. For Dr. Drew, you called me?
We were doing back when we were interviewing the whole whack pack. You were on our early wish list.
We didn't do the whole whack pack.
Maybe that's why you didn't like it.
Into that pile. You're right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have jumped into that.
It was all building up to this.
Yes.
See, that was it. You didn't want to, with us experimenting on our first
cover.
podcast.
I can't believe there's somebody around that remembers Bigfoot. That's hysterical. That's the first time I heard somebody mention that guy in 30 years.
Yeah, I know. Listen, he's a fascinating psychiatric spectrum. But Ami, go ahead. Let's get on. Let's talk to Jackie.
Yeah,
Ami, do you know my connection with those morons? That I coined that phrase, whack pack.
That's what I heard. So why don't you tell us about how?
I don't want to be part of a pack that I named. Come on.
No, we get that. We get it.
You know the Groucho Marx quip about that.
Yes,
part of it. Exactly right. All right. So first of all, we want to know, Jackie, what have you been doing with yourself? It's been a number of years since you left the Stern Show, and we want to know what you've been doing. What are you doing?
4 years waiting to talk to you guys. 4 years. And I've been telling the same jokes for 40 years. I just celebrated, or if you want to call it that, 40 years as a stand-up comic. I started in 1979 telling jokes when I was 31, and that's what I still do. You know, like Saturday night I told jokes, and Friday night I told jokes, and last Saturday, that's what I do. I do things here and there. They're doing a documentary on me that's officially done that we're going to screen for family and friends in a couple weeks, and then we're going to take it to all the film festivals. So that's something that's literally worth announcing, and it's exciting. It's called Joke Man. And it was funny because Artie Lang said he'd be in it. And then he got in trouble, and he went to jail, and he went to rehab, and he was all screwed up. And he got better, and it took us so long to do the documentary that he got well again. And now Artie's in the documentary.
That's awesome.
Wonderful. He's just a great guy.
Did you punch up that documentary script? I'm just curious.
Yeah, listen. It's so funny because people have been, this. You might as well be in the whack pack, Ami, because everybody on the street says the same 4 things. If I see somebody recognize me from the Stern Show, I turn to somebody I'm with. They're either going to say, you want me to buy you a Heineken? I know you're so cheap you would never pay for it. Are you punching up scripts? Are you still mad at Artie Lang? And, you know, at some point on the Stern Show, I heard that a bunch of my comic friends were making big money in Hollywood punching up scripts. So I must have mentioned that on the air. And, you never hear the end of it.
No.
You know, I keep hearing,
on the Stern Show,
you cheap bastard, you stole that hotel room in Florida. How could you do that? Meanwhile, Howard berated me for 40 minutes on the show for getting a free room in Florida. And at the end of the 40 minutes, I said, well, I hate to spoil your fun, but I paid for that room. And when they play it back on Best Of, they conveniently chop that out. So as far as anybody knows, I never paid for the room. And that's really the game. And I don't care because that's what he created. And I love being part of it. So, but no, I'm not making a lot of money punching up scripts, you dirty low bastard.
I'm just curious because you have been at this for 40 years. And I'm not from a success perspective, but from a talent perspective, from a joke-telling perspective, as a comedian, would you put yourself in the same category as a Chappelle, a Chris Rock, a Jerry Seinfeld?
Oh, stop it. I am so far above that. No, of course I'm nowhere near that. You know, it's so funny. They had to put me in the film The Aristocrats because when they did a search on The Aristocrats on the web, they only got 2 hits. And both of them were my website, jokeland.com. But for totally ridiculous reasons, I knew the guy that wrote the major joke books, and I had known that joke for 20 years, and it was already in a joke book I put out 10 years before the movie came out. But that's the only reason I was in the movie. If you look at the poster for The Aristocrats, it's every huge comedy name you've ever heard and me. It's really funny. Like, I know I don't belong in there, but I kind of do for my contribution, you know. So it's kind of weird, you know.
But that was Penn Jillette's film, right?
Yeah,
He did that.
The joke book I just put out is he did the forward to. He's a very, very good friend. You know,
I was going to say he wouldn't put somebody in there.
You know.
Yeah, he wouldn't put somebody there just cause. I mean, Penn's way too smart for that.
No. I contributed, but I'm saying no. I'm not a Dave Chappelle, or, you know, and I never got near there. And I don't know if I ever would, but I took 18 years out to be on some radio show. You know, I wasn't really. I was
18 years?
I was mining the money you can make from doing that.
Wow, 18 years. That's incredible.
The first 3 years I worked for free.
That by the way, Jackie, that's a very
my salary.
Yeah, that's a very common radio story. A lot of people in radio work for a period of time for zero just because they love doing it or they have some.
But I was not a radio guy trying to do radio. I was the guy who came in, but I created my job, and I'm not complaining. It was fantastic. Slowly but surely, I was giving him ideas and notes. And then when we went to mornings, he said, I want you to be on the show, you know, 2 days a week. And I went to full-time very fast. And I created the job they always made fun of me for calling it flying gag writer. But Drew, imagine if you're sitting there talking and every once in a while somebody passes you something funny to say, which at this point I'm starting to realize you probably could use that.
Yeah, I could. Thanks for noticing.
You're not a comedian, but I'm saying for Howard, you know, if you're already funny, having an extra help makes a big difference. You know, if Howard is brilliant and so funny and so talented, but anybody can be a little funnier.
Yeah.
You know, and once I got there, then all of a sudden Fred Norris had a conduit to get jokes to Howard, and like we went to Pluto. You know, but it was just spectacular. But you know, I was going out and making a lot of money telling my jokes because I was famous from the show, but I certainly didn't have time to pursue comedy in any way. I don't even know if I would have. To tell you the truth, I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I failed as a musician, and I started telling jokes on stage. It's that simple. That was my total life plan in my whole life.
He was Dolomite before Dolomite.
Let me try jokes.
Dolomite before Dolomite.
I was.
Jackie,
I was the same as Dole. He made his own albums and sold them. That's exactly what I did. You know,
Jackie, how much?
Believe it or not.
I do believe it.
If we're and again, this only works when we're totally honest between the two of us. In truth, how much do you think of Howard's success and how much the show worked was because of your contributions? How much?
You know what? Nobody will ever know that, because who could tell? I know I made him funnier, but the show was so groundbreaking and so unique that maybe he didn't need me at all, but maybe he might not have got across the street without being a little funny. And it's a debate that rages. I've been off the show 20 years, and I talk to people in bars, and it's like it happened yesterday. There were a lot of weird things. One thing that somebody said to me that was really funny, they said, I lived in Washington, D.C., and I listened to Howard Stern every day. And by coincidence, I moved to New York very soon after he moved to New York. And then you joined the show. And he said, this might sound stupid, he said, but when he was in Washington, D.C., before you were on the show, he was outrageous and funny. And now he's funny and outrageous, which is so subtle. But if people you're not going to believe what this guy's going to say is one thing, but this guy is so funny and you're not going to believe what he says, it's different.
Yeah.
If you act like an idiot, no, I'm responsible for some of it.
Okay. Let me. I got a couple.
I always make the same stupid analogies. If you're a sprinter, okay,
yeah,
and you run the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds, you're a champion. You are really good. If you run it in 9.9, you're the world champion.
Right.
And they disqualify the event if there's a little wind at the guy's back. And I was wind at Howard's back. Maybe he went from world class to world champion. But I don't know. Nobody will ever know. That's the beauty of the whole thing. That was why it was so hard for me to negotiate, so hard for them to give me more money, for me to take less money. It's how anybody sees it.
Let me. I have a couple questions. So indulge me for a second. One is 8
inches. 8 inches.
Okay. Well, thanks. That was one. Now I only have one more question. One is sort of historical questions, kind of abstract.
Susan asked me that.
I know she's got a weird obsession. I can't help that. And so she's not. I don't think she's listening. Oh, she's listening. Good.
I'm listening.
I've been around the show a bunch, and the guys and stuff in the back, and I'd always got the sense that they gave me the feeling that you harbored some sort of bitterness or something. I experience you completely the opposite right now. I experience you as somebody who's happy and content. And what is that? What's that mismatch?
The only people that say I harbor any bitterness are people who have never met me or hung around me. And it's that simple. I meet so many. The guy who's doing the documentary on me, it's coming out any minute. It's called Joke Man. You got to go to see it. Please promise me.
I will.
I met him at the Friars Club 20 years ago. I don't think I had even left the show yet. It was like, meet your new Friars. And he was a new Friar and a huge Stern fan. And we started talking. And 5 minutes after we're talking, he said, "You're not that guy from that show. You're a completely different guy." Because, Howard had me painted as cheap, which made my friends crazy because there's nobody more generous, and angry and bitter. Meanwhile, I couldn't be a nicer guy, and I couldn't have more friends, et cetera, et cetera. So then the logical thing was I left the show, and I was bitter. The only thing that people could possibly interpret as bitter is when people ask me questions, I'm honest. Like you asked me, what'd you contribute to the show? All I can do is answer honestly. I don't say I was the whole show, or I didn't do anything, or I saved it. All I can tell you is what happened and my experience. Now, what good am I to you if I don't answer honestly? No good at all, right, Ami? You wouldn't have me on here if you thought I was going to shoot the crap.
Well, I don't think you serve yourself.
How could I be bitter? I made a fortune I hated getting up early. You know, there's give and take, you know, and I like to break Howard's balls, but he loved to break mine, you know.
Well, that's the part of the show that I want people, if you go into that environment, you're getting your balls busted. It's meta ball busting all the time.
It's a free fire zone.
You have to like prepare for not just straight up, but like meta levels of busting that you don't anticipate.
And they used to come at me because they knew I could take it. So I got Howard and Robin and Fred and Gary and John runs in, and they're coming at me like Bruce Lee standing in the middle with a pole, you know, when this guy's attacking them from all sides. But I didn't care because I could handle it.
Now,
like
this is
Fred.
this is another question. And
me and Fred Norris used to go at it. Hold on. Me and Fred Norris used to go at it. But just kidding around. But Fred Norris didn't fight with anybody else. Nobody could.
I can't even imagine.
Nobody could go toe-to-toe with him. Nobody could go toe-to-toe with them. But we were peers. We were on equal ground. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm telling you right now, I know that they love that I'm not there anymore, because the day that I walked out of that studio, Fred, Robin, and Gary all went on vacation. They didn't have to deal with me breaking their balls anymore. You know, Gary would walk out of the studio, and just as he's going through the door, I'd say to Howard, look at his ass. And we were off and running for 40 minutes, you know. And it was, you know, that's not me being funny. That's just me, you know, telling the Doberman to attack the guy, you know.
Right.
I'm sorry. I never shut up.
Speaking of the gang, we listen to the show obsessively, and it is amazing how often they bring you up still.
Yeah.
Right? 20 years
all the
later.
time.
And there seems to be, and I can only tell you what this is on the air.
Now you say, because people don't talk. They bring me up, or people come up calling the show and bring me up? They don't bring me up.
I know they do.
That's not true. That's not true.
Howard will bring you up in sort of musing about the past. He'll always bring you up, and then Gary, you're on Gary's mind. He comes up a lot from Gary, from my perspective. Yeah,
I think look, there seems to be a genuine dislike of you from Robin and Fred in particular. And it seems that is
that true?
But that is crazy, because Fred and me were so much closer than anybody even knew. I usually don't even bring that up. And I went to lunch with Robin a couple of years ago, so I don't know if maybe it's true, but I don't think that's genuine. I think they're towing the family line there. You know,
it's
but I don't know. I don't listen.
It's often hard to know what's radio and what's Memorex. You know what I mean? What's real?
But the truth is, did I ever do anything to them that would elicit that response? No. You know, I mean, I tell the truth. You know, one thing with Gary, and it was, I still haven't gone and checked. When I wrote my book, I put out an autobiography a couple of years ago called The Joke Man, Bow to Stern. And you got to have the whole title, because if you put in Bow to Stern, you get a 7th grade sailing manual. Okay.
But I put out this autobiography game on how many times he plugs himself. We should take a shot.
Oh, no, of course. So, well, that's why I'm doing this. You think I like you guys?
Of course. You're not doing it for help.
We get it.
Look at our faces.
So I wrote this book, and I wrote enough for 2 books. And I thought I covered everything. But every time I mentioned Gary's name, you know, fluff, flooey, baba booey, you know, all the different connotations, all the different, whatever they're called, permutations of his name. And he called me up. I had enough for 2 books, and I had to pick and choose the chapters, and I used one book. So I have a whole second book. And he said, listen, I didn't mind you breaking my balls in the book so much, but you never said, by the way, Gary is a really good guy, and he does a really great job, which I was sure I had put in there, and it must be in the other poor part of the book, because I would have never omitted that. So I do feel bad about that, but I you know, we talked it out. I mean, it was like, it wasn't a big deal, so I didn't even realize it. But I mean, I didn't say anything. You know, it's so funny. So many people complained to me that I didn't go dirty and crummy enough in the book and talk crap about people. But number one, that's not me. And number two, there's nothing to tell. Everything that happened on the show happened on the air. You guys are all fully aware of the stuff that happened, you know.
Yeah.
So.
That we're seeing on this stream I'm watching, people's comments from various platforms. A lot of love for you, sir. Now, there's a question here that caught my eye. And
now, wake up your mind. You just said there was no love.
No,
Well,
there's
that's the guy
love.
that's
There's
on
love
the
coming.
show.
Trust me, there's love. There's just
There's
interesting.
love coming from the people that are listening to people not love me on the show.
Well, there's just interesting and provocative kinds of questions in here. But this one,
Of course
is
there
this for real? Did he work with? Did you work with Mel Brooks on
Come
something?
on. No way.
No.
No.
What do you mean,
okay.
no way? Like, that couldn't happen?
Well,
come on.
well, there's a
No,
question.
Well,
I didn't think
I'm
so.
getting a weird vibe from you, Ami. You're coming across like a dick. What did I ever tell you? I didn't do your
Ami
show.
sort of is a dick. That's
I
kind of
hear that
that's
a
kind of,
lot,
that's kind of
actually.
Ami's brand.
You know, if I met Mel Brooks, we would laugh for 2 hours.
Okay,
Are you
fair
kidding?
enough. Okay, well, there was somebody who asked
Go ahead.
that. I didn't believe.
Unless he found out I was an anti-Semite, then I'd be in trouble.
Then there'd be trouble. My
be a
second
major
question, other than the 8 inches, thank you for providing that, was: are you surprised? You're a true comedy veteran. Are you surprised at the sort of social stature of comedians today? They really even though they're being crushed by the cancel culture and the political correctness, still seems to me the last 10 years particularly, comedy has been at the vanguard of our culture. A, am I right? And B, does that surprise you?
You mean like a comic becoming the president of Ukraine, that type thing?
Well, not just
That's,
yeah.
No,
not just that they
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
it's because the power of the media and there's so much social media, so everybody's so much in your face. You know, Burns and Allen went around the country for 10 years with the same 7 minutes.
Yeah.
But who saw them? 35 people. You know, it's got to be just the power of laughter. You know, but some comics are just that, because comics for the most part are really, really smart people and they're really interesting. So if somebody's talking and they're interesting and they're making you laugh, that's a valuable person. That's a person you want to pay attention. I think, you know, but you know, once again, if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer even if I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So, you know,
Well,
but it
couple
is
things here.
interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, I think. So, again, responding to the stream here, yes, Ami Horowitz is the same Ami Horowitz that went to Sweden. We talked about that a bit earlier. People are jumping onto the stream.
Oh, you know, Jimmy Kimmel made a joke at the Oscars about the video.
I forgot a couple years ago, right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that video. Well, you got a call from. Didn't you get a call from a world leader after that, or was it? Yeah, yeah.
But it's not about me. This is about Jackie.
Yeah. No, but listen, we got time.
Martling.
No, I listened to the first 10 minutes of your show. There's nothing like starting off with a laugh.
A bit of questions about Robin in our
We're
stream
even.
here. It's funny. People think you and Robin have got heat. But then they think she and I do too.
Like
though, to be
anger at
fair.
each other or sexual heat? Sexual heat.
Well, like you're at each other, and she and I the same thing. They think that we don't like each other. We've had our moments, but I think she's the best. But anyway, so Ami, you go back. You have to get a question by Ami now.
You mentioned that you don't listen to the Stern Show.
Wait a minute. You gotta let me address the Robin thing.
Okay, go.
When we went to mornings, after we'd been on mornings for maybe a week, I came in. Everybody was so honest, like Gary with his tape of his talking to his girlfriend and stuff like that.
That's
everybody
still a classic.
was so honest. Everybody's so honest with the show, and that's what made the show work, because you just threw down. And I came in. I said, Howard, I swear to God, I had the wildest, most graphic sex dream about me and Robin last night. It was unbelievable, and I didn't even know. I mean, I knew that for years, but only from one day a week. And he couldn't believe it, and they couldn't believe it, and we all laughed, and it was just so funny. 2 weeks later, Robin came in and said, Howard, I have to tell you, last night I had a very graphic sex dream about me and Jackie. I mean, that's the kind of show it was, that she would admit that had happened. You know, she didn't make that up, but the fact that it had happened, she copped to it. And we always had a brother-sister, flirty, silly thing. I don't think her and her boyfriend used to come to our house for dinner. You know, nobody knows that. You know, like maybe she hates me. Maybe she might be angry at me for leaving, which makes no sense. But you know, that's her bread and butter. You know, so who knows?
Can I ask you?
I
read in some of your sort of the material out there about you that, and please do not. You don't feel necessary to answer this, because I understand what works around this, obviously, but there was some note somewhere about a substance history, and I'm wondering if recovery is part of your life, or if you talk about that sort of thing, or if that information was just spurious.
Oh, please. I was I was a big drinker, as was my family. If I ever drank as much Heineken as Howard claimed I did on the radio, I'd be dead. But Heineken was our sponsor, so every time we did a commercial, I drank 3 cases, 5 cases, 12. You know, it was nutty.
Whatever.
But I really was a drunk, and I really did. I never missed the show. I was late a couple times in 15 years of commuting. It was a pretty astounding record. I mean, to be in that chair with your pen at 6 o'clock, ready to go, when you were drunk 3 o'clock in the morning in Philadelphia after a comedy show. You know, it was pretty. Yeah, I pat myself on the back for that crap. But I was a drunk, and it tied in with me leaving the show. I was in a bad marriage. I knew I would never stop drinking while I was on the show. There was just a bunch of things that played into it. And when I left the show, a couple of months after I left the show, I realized that I could not spend the rest of my life waiting for it to be 5 o'clock. And I said to myself, you know what? The only solution is to have it never be 5 o'clock. And I just stopped drinking. And I'm so proud. It's the last chapter of my book. And people like it because it's very, very honest. You know, I lost a couple brothers. You know, I've been through the war games.
Yeah.
And I was at a christening, and they come around with the coffee and the pitcher of beer. You know, real class act. And they come around, and we were always the first ones at an event, at the cocktail hour early, drinking all through the meal, drinking while everybody else was having coffee, drinking on the way home. And the girl came around with the coffee and the beer, and I pushed my beer goblet away, and I turned over my coffee cup. And I swear to God, Nancy, my wife, it looked like she saw a ghost. And she said, "What was that?" And I said, "I'm done." And I was done. And that was May 5th, 2001, and I haven't had a sip since.
And I've noticed it caught my attention.
But no AA or anything like that.
No, I hear you,
No
but
AA.
let me tell you something.
So people say, "Oh, you didn't have a problem," you know, blah blah blah.
Oh no, you had a problem, but let me tell you that the way you attach yourself to things like honesty and openness, those are principles of AA. You were talking that language without being involved with it. It's very interesting.
You know what? It's just like religion. You know, you could be a Jew and you could be Buddhist, you could be anything you want. I don't believe in anything except the golden rule. But that's all you need. That is all you need. You know, be nice. Jesus Christ, if everybody's just nice or some degree of nice, you know, problem solved. You know, you want Jesus, whatever you want. One of the things that Howard and I really agreed on was, you know, people say, "I'm going to heaven, but you're not going to heaven because I'm a Presbyterian and you're a Methodist," and, you know, blah, blah, blah. The guys in Africa whose religion is to beat on a log with a stick, their religion is as viable as somebody that prays to the Pope. You know, whatever you believe in, whatever makes you feel good or feel better or gives you a reason to aspire to do better, it's nobody's business what the hell it is. And I believe that.
Which begs the issue. Did you have some sort of moment of clarity beyond that sort of...
Oh, yeah, I brought home a log. I beat on it every morning.
Oh, good. I noticed you're being super nice to everybody. You just called Ami a dick, but other than that, you're super nice to everybody.
That's true.
Well,
yeah, I know, it's just a fact.
Yeah, do the math. You know, Susan said, "You'll notice Ami is a dick," and then the engineer said, "Yeah, that's for sure." And
Sorry, Ami.
But
Right.
there's never a moment of clarity. You know, it's funny. I quit for a year in like early '90s. And I was like, "Well, I've done this. I can do this." And then I started, you know, I'll have a light beer. You know.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I was such a drunk through high school and then college, and then drank the whole 70s. I was in a band and we drank Jack Daniels and Budweiser. And then I said, no more hard liquor. So for the entire 80s, I drank Budweiser. And then in the 90s, I started drinking light beer. So in my mind, I was tapering off.
Right,
you know what I mean? From hard liquor to Budweiser.
You have all the classic features, my friend, and it's really interesting. But
I just stopped.
Glad you're well.
You're astute. This is your field.
Yeah.
And I got a really good friend, Toby Ludwig, whose mother was an alcohol counselor for 30 years. And she became such a good friend of mine. I actually would go visit her and her husband without my friend. You know how you sometimes have your friends' parents,
Sure.
you're such good friends that they're your friends, right?
Yeah.
So I went to see them, and it was so cute. Her husband was 95 years old, and he was a gazillionaire. But when I went to visit him, he had a little piece of paper with the jokes written in pencil that he wanted to tell me. Everybody wants to tell her a joke. It's just, I got to write some more books. It's so funny. The gazillionaire. Hey, did you ever hear this one about the nun and the priest? So she says, you know, Jack, it's funny. As much as I know you, we've never discussed your drinking. And you know, what was your problem? You know, what was the extent of your problem? And I said, all right, I'll tell you. And this is the truth. I quit without going to AA or anything. And people are like, well, you didn't really have a problem. And I said, I don't know if I had a problem or not. Like, who cares? You know, I'll tell you though, I never sat in front of the TV and had a bunch of beers and watched the Yankees. If my wife and I went out to dinner, I never had maybe more than 2 Bloody Marys. And then we'd go home. And I never got up in the morning and needed a shot of booze or a beer. And I look over and she was smiling. And I said, why are you smiling? And she said, Jackie, anybody that uses the word never when they're describing their drinking is an alcoholic.
Right.
I don't know if that's one of your tenets that you know, but
it's all the deal making. It's the deal making we look for. People going, I don't do it here. I don't do it here. I never do it there. Yeah, and but listen, you got at it. I'll tell you what happened is you got at it before you totally lost control, and that's what's really important here. And you applied some of the basic principles, which is honesty and living a certain kind of life. But again, I'm going to turn it over to Ami. Ami has lots of questions.
Wait, you know who saved my life, right? Who saved my life?
Who?
You know who saved my life?
No.
Howard. If I hadn't had to been in that seat at 6 o'clock every morning, who knows what would happen to me?
I thought you were going to say Gene
what happens
Wilder.
every comic. Huh?
I thought you were going to say Gene Wilder.
Well, he didn't hurt. All right, so go ahead. Okay.
So, you mentioned that you don't listen to the show, right? And
True, don't feel bad. That was obscure to me, too.
And I get it, right? I get why you wouldn't listen to the show. Tell us about kind of what kind of feelings that would bring up.
But no, it's not a proactive thing. Like when I was on the show, we would go on vacation. I never listened to Best Of or any of that stuff. I can go back so far because I can remember things I heard when I listened to it. And then when I went off the show, I mean, I've always had Sirius Radio. But there were times I walked off the show for like a couple of weeks or a month or something. And I just didn't listen. I'm not a radio guy to begin with. Until the oldies station came on, CBS FM, I started listening to that. But it wasn't like a firm, I'm not going to listen to this. If I listen to it and I laugh, I'm going to feel bad. And if I listen to it and I don't laugh, there's no upside to it. It's not like I get in the car and say, I'm not going to listen. It's not an option for me. And people have trouble either believing that or understanding that, but I don't care. Why would I care what anybody thinks? I just don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you.
I can tell that you think I'm full of crap, but why would I not say I listened to the show if I did?
No, that's just Tommy being a dick.
You laugh.
If I were in the same position, I would not listen to the show. So I do believe it. For me, it would be painful to listen to it, frankly. Like, there's no upside, like you said. No, I get it. I totally get it. I get it.
But, and if I was listening to it and all of a sudden, they say a Cub Scout got hit by a truck and Fred plays my laugh and it gets a big laugh, I know I'll sit there and go, that's not really fair. I mean, they own my laugh, but, send me the Gallagher's for a steak. Do something. Jesus Christ,
I guess I'm also wondering kind of where you see, as you know, Howard has evolved. The one thing, while he's always changed his show, he's always pivoted, and I think it's
he has never changed. He was standing with his nose up against the window pane for all those years, and they finally let him in.
What do you mean? Tell me more. I'm fascinated. What do you mean?
He was the kid that wanted to get into the party with the cool kids, that he couldn't do it. So he had to stand outside and make an asshole out of himself till they finally said, all right, come in.
Right. He's
I don't
still,
really believe any of that, but I think it's a really funny theory.
No, he's still.
I think you do believe that,
I think I believe
and
it.
I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah, I think that's the way he thinks of himself.
Like anything, anytime you goof around, it's based on something. But no, I guess we all evolve. But evolving is so crazy. Like I'll hang out with somebody and they'll say, "Oh, Jackie's evolved." Like I'll go out with somebody and they'll say, "All right, we're going over to my parents' house, but watch your language or something." I'm like, "Do you understand that for 15 years I was on the Howard Stern show? We never, ever cursed. We were on terrestrial radio. Not once in 15 years. One time in 15 years did they have to bleep me." Because Robin, I was so mad at Robin once that she came running into the studio and I said, "Get out of here, you see." I actually said that on the air.
Well, maybe that's where some of her resentment lies.
No, it was so funny. It was so funny. But the point is, I said, I actually sit at the dinner table with my grandmother, and my family doesn't seem to get upset. Get a little bit real. You know what I mean? Like, like Bozo. Bozo takes off his red wig and his big shoes before he goes out in public.
Right.
It's just a little bit, it's a little bit less subtle. That's all.
Do you think that, particularly compared to where the show was when you were there, do you think Howard today is still relevant?
To quote my old friend Richard Lewis, there is no unit of scientific measurement that they've come up with yet that could measure how little I give a flying rat's ass. I just don't care. Now, number one, I wouldn't know. No, he's evolved enough that we were friends for a million years and I don't hear from him. Is that evolving? I don't know.
Well, how do you feel about that?
What's evolving? He's. I don't listen to the show. I don't know what that means. But what's evolving? He doesn't have me and Gilbert on the show because we're too dirty. That's evolving. Jackie evolved. He stopped telling dick jokes at parties. Well, let's make sure we don't invite him next time.
Huh.
Like I said before, if I don't know the answer, I'm just going to talk. So you just answer, I don't know.
But you hit on something. You said it a couple of times.
Evolved. That sounds like he walked out of the sea,
You said something a couple of times, which I think is telling. I want to follow up on it. You did mention that he won't get back to you. You don't hang out anymore.
Yeah, that makes me sad.
How do you feel about that?
What do you mean won't get back to me?
You just said that you reach out to him.
Well, I thought we heard you said that. I thought you said something like that too.
That Howard he doesn't call you back. He doesn't
oh no, I do. I didn't think I said that. I sent him a birthday. I said this year. I don't know if I said it last year. We used to always exchange birthday emails, and sometimes he sent cards, and then But I wrote, "You're so old now that you must be catching up with me," and I said, "It's so fortunate for your new A-list friends because now they can get to me through you." I wrote that to him. And I said, "I don't care what happens, just do everything you can to keep Trump from getting reelected." And then I just signed, "I love you," and that's all, But, it's a very weird thing. And, everything, I know when I talk, I'm a walking, talking plug. And I don't care because that's what I do. You promote yourself. If you're funny, hopefully you're getting away with it. Or if you're not, you wind up being me and working small clubs and talking to you guys. Okay. So I don't know if it happens to people that aren't comedians, but it probably does. But I don't know if this is almost something you could pursue as a therapist or whatever. I have Howard's funny bone. And I don't know if there's a name for that. There are certain people in my life, and I guess in other people's life, where you have their funny bone. You walk into a room and you look at them and they're already, you got them.
I know what you mean.
Have them.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I have that with him. And I think it makes him a little crazy, but it's fun because it's somebody who can make you laugh. And I sat there for 15 years. I think my most important thing being there is we had such a good time, And I had his funny bone. That's the sad thing of losing a relationship. You know, that because that's it's to merely say that, not even about him, to say that about anybody, just sounds downright pompous, which it isn't, because it's, you know, you'd have to be there and say, oh, here's Harry. Watch this. I have his funny bone. Hey, Harry, you know.
Yeah.
You know, one of the greatest times was they were going off of K-Rock, and it was there last week. And Gary called me up and said, "Hey, Zach, you gotta come back on the show. Everybody wants to see you. Don't worry, we're not gonna attack you." And I'm like, "All right, you know, oh, come on," because at this point I hadn't seen anybody since I left, and I thought it'd be weird, but it could only be interesting. But I went in and sat in the guest chair as opposed to where I sat behind the thing. And I sat there, and immediately me and Howard and Rob were laughing, and it couldn't have been more comfortable. It couldn't have been more warm and fun. And Gary, this is why he gets mad. Gary came walking in and sat on a stool next to me. And Howard was across from me, and I looked over, and I looked at Gary's, I'm not making this up, on my life. I looked at his lips and his teeth, and Howard caught me looking at Gary. I was looking, it's almost like in school when the teacher catches you like reading a comic book or something. Like all of a sudden I turned, and he's got this big smile on his face, and I just got a big smile on my face. It might even be on Best Of, my last day on show. And I said, Howard, that is entertainment. I will never cease to be amazed by those poor lips trying to get over those teeth. And we just giggled. And we just giggled for a minute. But it was it wasn't funny to anybody. Maybe. But it was just sheer joy.
And there was born a bit that they have been mining for the last 25
Yeah,
years.
same bit about the horse teeth. That goes on.
No, the whole horse teeth. I'm not talking about that. This is years after the horse teeth thing. This is me revisiting and seeing the teeth and the lips again. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm coming back, you know, and you forget the old times, and you know, and it was like it felt like the first time. You know? It's hard to explain.
I'm watching the thread here, and somebody's asking about Artie. And I know that Artie had a lot of, I wouldn't call it resentment, but sadness that once he disconnected from the show, there was a disconnect amongst all the relationships. And I think I'm hearing you say kind of the same thing, that once you leave the show, it gets sad because you don't have the same relationship with everybody.
Well, listen, a few things. Number one, so many people said to me, "Oh, you did Artie's direct TV show. It's good to see you guys getting along again. Oh, you did Artie's podcast. There was never, ever anything between when I left the show in March. He didn't join the show till after 9/11, like in October. There was no crossover. We had nothing to do with each other except that we knew each other. And he started listening to the show because his father told him he heard me on the show. I mean, you know, there's no animosity of any kind. But it is true. And I'll tell you, after I left, of course, you miss the money. Of course, you miss the fame, blah, 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 blah. You miss even getting up early in the morning. Like some people say, oh, I would miss a flat tire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing that you really miss is it is so abnormal for 3, 4, or 5 people to sit in a room and laugh for 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. It is just not, it's not like, well, I'm going to leave the show, but I'll find that someplace. It doesn't exist in nature. Yeah. It just doesn't. It's hard enough to find 4 or 5 people you can do that with, let alone, you know. And it was just a sheer joy. And for that to go away, it is, you know, it does kind of suck, you know, but I understand, you know, totally. But it is sad, you know, it was, and that's why walking back in that day, you know, it was like, I used to say that whenever I called in, once in a while, they'd let me call in to promote a gig or something. And the minute, and that always sounds pompous, so buzz off on me. I'd call the show, and Robin and Howard would get on the phone, and I'd call in. It was immediately the old show.
Yeah.
With me on the phone and the two of them. It was the whatever you call that, that chemistry was, everybody takes their places. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You ever go to your high school reunion? 20 minutes after you get the high school reunion, everybody's standing in the same groups that they stood in the walls of high school 20 years earlier.
Well, in this case,
people just go to their room.
There's a reason it worked all those years. But Jackie, we're going to have to leave it right there. I have one more question, which is a friend of mine worked on the TV show. I'm wondering if you knew him as a producer, Bob Taylor. Do you remember Bob Taylor back on the Stern TV show?
No, and I know all the names. Are you talking about the CBS TV show or the E?
The E.
TV?
The E TV show.
Bob Taylor. That's so funny because I see these guys all the time. Brian, the light guy, and Scott Einziger. I haven't seen in a while, but Ganji and they were all, because they used to all come out to my parties, but I don't remember that guy. What did he have?
It's okay.
Did he have a nickname?
No, not that I remember, but he's the guy that made the first call to me about being on the radio in 1984, 1983. But do you have any last questions? We're gonna have to wrap this thing up.
Wait. 1983. That's long before we had TV.
No. That's my story. Then he ended up working on the E show later, and I just.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the one last question I want to have for you is that, you didn't cross over with Artie. You did cross over with Benji. That they essentially put Benji sitting next to you. How did you feel when they put a guy like that next to you? Did you feel that was
I loathe that. That didn't push me out, but that made me it couldn't have been more insulting. It's like if you put an extra shortstop next to Jeter. What's he going to do? Catch the balls that Jeter misses? I mean, nothing against Benji because Benji's a good kid. And truth be told, everything he wrote was as funny as what I was writing. I just created that space. It's like somebody sitting there and go, "No, Fred, play this sound effect instead." No, Robin, read this news story instead. We had it covered. But nothing against the guy, especially somebody trying to get ahead. Hey, if I was out in the office, I would have done anything I could have done to get my ass in that studio. So nothing against him, but I wasn't thrilled about the situation, but it had nothing to do with him. Does that make sense at all?
It does. Did you think that they were trying to push you out with that? Do you think that was kind of what their game as a
I know there's every chance that Don Buchwald said, "You know what, I'm going to put him there so he knows, he's not necessary," which is somebody having no idea the concept of the chemistry of the show and the chemistry between me and Howard. Howard said he enjoyed every second that I was there.
The producing powers and network powers and stuff would always add a third person to me and Adam, and we kept going, okay, fine, but it's not. That's not this.
We got it covered.
Yeah. It's interesting that I can see.
Harry once.
Yeah, I can see where that would come from. It comes from the those that say they know more than the ones that are actually producing the product.
Not only that, I had a tiny little space, and I had a place to put my notes, and a place to write my notes, and Fred would hand me notes. So so all of a sudden I got this kid sitting next to me. There's no room, and he's sitting there. So you know how fast the show moved. So Howard's talking a million miles an hour. I think it's something funny and give it to him. We're in the moment. We're at full tilt. So I think of something and I got to get to him. Also, I got Fred handing me notes. So I got to look at what Fred wrote and I wrote and decide. So now I'm getting a note from Fred, a note from Benji, and what I'm writing, trying to decide and get it all to Howard before he moves on. But I wasn't complaining it made my job harder. It just wasn't necessary, there you go. It sounds pompous again,
Well, Jackie, we're gonna have to wrap it up. Kaleb, can you maybe after we wrap up with Jackie, you do a little break, and then Ami and I'll come back and wrap up totally? Can we do that? Can you drop in a commercial right there, or no?
Let me say my stuff. The joke man.
Yeah, Kaleb has a heart out.
The joke man bowed to Stern.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
The joke man bowed to Stern is my autobiography, which I got a bump from Howard, which she had no idea. If you buy a book on Amazon, it'll say, Harry's joke books, and underneath it says people who bought this book also might have bought this book.
Yep.
So Howard came out with a book. And all of a sudden, this new book came out. And I guess underneath it said, people who bought this book also bought this. And his listeners had no idea I had a book out. And all of a sudden, I got this huge bump in sales.
Oh,
so
good.
The Joke Man bowed to Stern. And Joke Man is the IKA Collective documentary that is really fun and really interesting. Penn Jillette, Willie Nelson, Artie Lang, the whole gang, Billy West, of course. And I still have 516-9221, my dirty joke line for 40 years. People can't believe that. And but for the most part, I really, really appreciate talking to you guys. And I loved every second on the show. And I loved every second on this show.
Aw.
And I can't wait to meet your wife.
I know. We got to
Even
go
you.
out to dinner in New York. I'm excited.
All right, we're going to do that.
I mean, you
I
can
promise,
come maybe.
Susan, I promise Susan I'd share some pot with her.
Yes.
Whatever. Whatever it
You
takes.
can't say that. You can't say that. 2020, you can't say pot. I love this world.
But you have to say weed.
Dr. Drew,
Jackie.
Dr. Drew, in all seriousness, you are a legend, and it was a pleasure to be on your show.
Pleasure was ours. Thank you, man. Thank you for spending some time with us. We really do appreciate it. And we will see you in New York. And those of you, I've been watching your thread. We appreciate it. Apparently, Jeff the Drunk is watching this. And so, hi, Jeff. Good to hear from you. And Jackie, thank you. Ami, thank you. And we will see you all next time. The CBD industry is still pretty much the Wild West when it comes to claims and criticisms, but while science is still catching up with the industry, there seems to be an overwhelmingly positive response to CBD's efficacy. Luckily, our good friends at Social CBD are raising the industry's testing standards. They like to say they're test obsessed. Social CBD works closely with their suppliers and multiple third-party labs to ensure you are getting exactly what the package says you are getting. High-quality CBD with 0.0% THC. And Social CBD wants you to be skeptical. That's why they put a QR and batch code on every package. This allows you to check all the test results for the product, not general testing, the specific batch of product you bought. Social CBD just came out with a brand new line of products, broad spectrum CBD gummies. Come 3 flavors, lemon, red raspberry, peach mango. And just like their dedication to the high testing standards, they're using state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment that creates their gummies without cross-contamination. Again, this is a company that really cares when it comes to producing their products. To learn more, go to drdrew.com/socialcbd. That's my website, drdrew.com/socialcbd. And for a limited time, you'll get 20% off at checkout with code Dr. Drew. That's DRDREW. Again, new range of products, gummies, roll-on balm, complex products for relaxation like valerian root, and a vape pen. Many products there. You can find out more, drdrew.com/socialcbd. Needles have increasingly become a part of everyday life. Proper disposal is both difficult and expensive. We have the solution. Simpler, safer, affordable, and fulfills the obligation to protect our environment. A single stick with something like this means tracking down the user. It means blood test for the person stuck. It means possibly medication for an extended period of time. Needle sticks are devastating. No more. Incinerate the needle. Needle goes in this port. It's over. Done. Needle gone. We all have loved ones who use needles. Keep their home safe. Medical offices are loaded with sharps. We are using ancient technology to protect our patients, our staff, ourselves. You know what needle sticks do. You know the cost and the devastation psychologically and physically, potentially, from a needle stick. Eliminate that completely. Stop using ancient technology. Sand MIDI. It will solve your problems. Find out more at needledestructiondevice.com.